Your 401k on its own is not your retirement plan. Melanie, thanks for joining me
Of course.
today.
Glad to be here.
A lot of people think their 401k is their entire retirement plan. And it's interesting for me to see that, and it's very common. But in your experience, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, working with some, moderate to high net worth clients, what I found is that's only a modicum of their entire portfolio. And what the average investor doesn't understand is that the 401k is a highly taxed vehicle. So they're looking at the entire balance of the portfolio without understanding that really they have half of that because it's subject to state and federal taxation, market fluctuation, and market volatility. So I would say most people think that that's going to be the vehicle that sustains them through retirement, when in reality, they have half of what they put into it, and it usually doesn't last their lifetime.
Of course, and you touch on a really good point where a lot of people just don't know what they don't know with their 401k.
Yes.
And we see oftentimes working with, both of us working with retirees, is that a lot of people, they spend the majority of their life accumulating wealth. But when they get to retirement, now they have to figure out income streams, taxes, like you said, and an actual strategy around their 401k. And so
Right.
they're not just in that accumulation phase anymore.
Exactly. It can be very overwhelming when you're working and growing and gathering, and you get to a point where you stop working. Then it's different season of life that you start to plan for. But by then, it could be a little too late. You have less years to accumulate, and you need that money like right away. So we try to help people by positioning their investment strategy to include other vehicles, not the 401k.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
And Melanie, I have a lot of respect for you and your professional practice. I know you've been with First Foundation Bank now for over 15,
13,
13
years.
years. And
Mm-hmm.
as a senior trust officer, walk the audience through what does a senior trust officer do?
So most people think of a will when someone passes away. Um, Wills are subject to probate and court proceedings. Most people now, since the 90s, know what a trust is. And a trust is just a written document that you basically explain what you want to have happen while you're living, if you become incapacitated, or if you pass away, who your money goes to, when they receive it, what assets go into it, usually like your investments, your home. So you list the assets that your trust holds, you retitle those assets. And basically, if you, Joe, became incapacitated, you name someone else to step in as a trustee to manage your assets for you, make sure you're taken care of, and when you pass away, who those assets go to. So, my role as a trustee, I work with people that are still living, that are their own trustee. We can manage their assets, and we often work with the beneficiaries that receive assets when someone passes away. So that's what I do.
Okay. For our audience today, let's say there's a father out there listening to us today, and he's got a family, he's got kids, a spouse, and he's wanting to make sure that he doesn't make some of the mistakes that you've seen throughout the years. What would you say are some of the things to be on the lookout for?
I'd say look at, in totality, all of your assets, what they're for, and when you're going to need them, and what you have for your spouse, if married, or children, if you have them, or grandchildren. I would say most people don't have any planning at all. They feel like they don't have any assets, so they don't need a trust, but that's a common misconception, because even if you have a 401k, you can designate who is going to receive that. If you have bank accounts, investment accounts, it's better to designate them to a trust, because if you don't, then they're subject to probate proceedings. And when you have a probate, it goes through the court. It's really expensive. It's public knowledge. So everything and everyone that you're leaving something to has a total snapshot of where you live, all your assets, who they're going to. So it's not private. But if you have a trust, that's really a private thing. So what I would tell people is just make sure you have a trust, and as your assets grow, you're going to make changes through your lifetime. I definitely, and I know we'll probably talk about this, but I would definitely look at what types of assets you have and what they're for, and how you can basically leverage your wealth through certain vehicles. You don't have to be wealthy to be wealthy, if that
Mm,
makes sense. You can
yes.
leverage insurance, annuities, and other types of vehicles. And most of my clients have a plethora of different types of assets.
You bring up a great point, and I want the audience to know that one, having a trust in place is incredibly important, correct?
Yes.
And then secondly, when we talk about the 401k or other assets, that that them on their own is just an asset, but are they working in your complete plan? And what is the purpose that they're serving? So I know we have had the privilege to work with many clients together, in terms of people that we have a relationship with, and just wanting to be another value add in their overall planning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it takes a team to get proper financial planning done from throughout someone's life to the day that they pass, right?
Right.
And so one of our mutual clients that we've worked with, I know the wife, I won't give specific names, but she was getting ready to retire recently, and she's built out a nest egg in her 401k, and her and her husband are sitting down looking at retirement 3 months out now, and he's retired now, and she's right there on the verge of retiring, and she's got this 401k with a lump sum of money sitting there, but no clear plan. And so what
Exactly.
we've been able to do with her is take a portion of her 401k and create a dedicated income plan. So by taking a portion of her 401k, we have created a personal pension for her, a guaranteed income stream for life that's going to be there for her and her husband no matter how long they live, right?
Yes.
And so I want to ask you, when you see people that have 401ks and they have other retirement assets in place, but they don't necessarily have a plan, what would be your advice to them?
I would say don't put all your eggs in one basket, because traditionally people think that the 401k is just something that they contribute to, and then the employer matches it up to a certain amount, and that it's just going to grow. But they don't really understand the mechanics of that vehicle. So, what I would say is have your team come together on your behalf and talk about how you can leverage certain things for now, when you retire, and ultimately when you're in need of care. And if you notice, a lot of celebrities and people that pass away have no planning whatsoever.
Mm,
So that's the number one thing that I see, is people have no planning at all. They just put it off, and then they're kind of caught off guard when they run out of money, or they don't have anything to leave to anyone, or now people are living longer.
yeah.
They ultimately have a risk now more than ever of living beyond what they have saved.
One thing I really try to focus on with my clients as well is letting them understand that I am not the expert in every field, right? So I'm not the trust expert like you are. I'm not the estate planning attorney. I'm not the CPA, but I understand my place in their planning, right? So when I sit down with clients, I understand that they need Melanie in their corner as well. They need the estate planning attorney. They need the right CPA. And I just want you families out there that are listening to know it's important to have a team that's working with you. It's important to have that communication and that organization, which is what you guys do at First Foundation, I know. and what I encourage my clients when they're looking at their retirement, right? And I think that retirement, it looks very different, depending on who you're talking to. For some people, that's continuing to work still. For others, that's fully hanging it up and traveling the world, right? It's going to look a lot different depending on who you're talking to. I wanted to ask you one final question. So, for someone out there that has built out a nice nest egg in their 401k, what are some of the ways that you'll typically see them diversify and, build around that in your experience?
Well, the good news is with a 401k, when you stop working, you definitely have the option to diversify. So,
Okay.
what I've seen is people carve off a portion for an annuity, hopefully and preferably that has long term care, like a long term care component. Some just put it into long term care. So, they can take that nest egg and basically diversify that to make sure that it's going to serve their needs in the future.
Yeah. I've seen, going to your point, with a lot of the annuities out there, people that are, say, 65 years old and they're retiring today, they don't have the same amount of time to play catch up if we were to face a market downturn, right?
Right.
So I've seen, and you've seen as well, clients that they retire today, markets take a dip, they're already pulling income from their 401k. Say they take a 30% loss in the market, they don't have
There's
10, 20
yeah,
years to catch up.
no way to get that back
Yeah.
before they retire.
How do you see annuities come in the picture then in some cases?
Well, what I like about annuities is, a lot of these annuities, which they help, I guess, guarantee lifetime income. So even if you outlive whatever you're receiving, it continues to pay. It continues to pay you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really unbeatable. If you compare that to your 401k, when that 401k we didn't even talk about fees for a 401k. When you see that depleted and you're still living, the money is going to run out. So an annuity is definitely a vehicle that will guarantee you, lifetime income. No matter how long you live, you'll be getting an amount. And, strategically, some of those are tax free.
Yeah. That's a great point you bring up. And it's funny because if you ask most people out there, would you want to have some of your retirement income guaranteed? Right? Most people say yes. I would love to have
Yes.
a portion of my retirement income guaranteed. And I mean, how much of a 401k is guaranteed?
None.
None, right?
Nothing.
And so it's important, like you said, it's important to understand that there's not a one asset that's here to solve everything for your retirement plan, but something that you said earlier is to not have all your eggs in one basket. So when you think about the 401k, it's a great additional asset to have in your overall plan, but it's not the end all be all.
Right. And that's why I like working with you, because you've been able to help some of my clients, and people just don't know what they don't know, and they want to be educated. And if you don't really have a supportive team that comes together with their different areas of expertise, you're Googling things, or you don't really understand the tax consequences and how it all works together. And then ultimately it's the person that loses out because they just didn't know who to ask, or, they just didn't know.
Of course. And so for any of you out there listening that have a 401k but don't feel confident in your overall retirement plan, know that there are options out there for you. You probably should be looking at diversifying, asking yourself how much of your income is guaranteed as of today. And, like you said, having a team around you to help you plan for these things, because your retirement, your trust, and so many of these things we want to make sure we have a clear plan around. It's important to do that with professionals like ourselves.
Yes, definitely.
And Melanie, if our audience wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, I'll give you my contact information, and you can display that, and they can email me, call me. I'm available. Love
Great.
to help.
And you're with First Foundation?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And so if you found today's content interesting, subscribe, give us a like, leave a comment in the section below. You're listening to the Family Reserve, and we're excited to have you tuned in. Thank you.